Welcome to another podcast from Health Talk from Marz. It's out of this world. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss the diseases and maladies that happen from being deficient in phytochemicals and minerals due to the depletion of these compounds in our soils. So stay tuned. In a little-known book called The Soil and Health in 1947, Sir Albert Howard presented a beautiful discussion on why organic agriculture is so important for the health of humans. In a famous statement he made, he states that artificial fertilizers give rise to artificial soil, which gives rise to artificial plants, which gives rise to artificial animals and eventually artificial humans. So he believed that the mineralization of soil was critical for the health of plants. So basically, minerals that are in soil feed microbes, and those microbes are critically important for plants. Plants actually eat these microbes, and in order to have a rich supply of these microbes, it's necessary to have all of these minerals in place. So organic agriculture will supply these needed minerals. So there's three things that I want to present with regards to why organic farming is so important. So for one, organic farming does not use artificial pesticides or herbicides. So we know one spraying of glyphosate will kill half of all the earthworms in the ground. Earthworms are critical creatures that basically supply the soil with important minerals and other organic matter to basically make those microbes grow. Number two, organic farming puts back critical minerals that eventually go into the plants that we eat. And these minerals have been found to be deficient in almost all humans in industrialized nations. So these minerals play an important role in protecting us from many of the degenerative diseases that we see today. So really critically important that they be supplied in our soil. Lastly, these minerals that basically feed the microorganisms that feed the plants, they allow the plants to become healthier so that the plants can make phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are important compounds that protect us, again, from many of the degenerative diseases that we see today, such as arthritis, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and many of the conditions that afflict our modern world today. So what are some of these degenerative diseases that we see today, and how are they associated with different minerals? Let's take diabetes, for example. So in diabetes, we know that diabetics tend to urinate more and excrete more minerals. So in particular, magnesium is a really critical mineral that most diabetics are deficient in. In addition, other nutrients, trace elements such as vanadium is really important for the binding of insulin onto receptors in the body to allow insulin to work more efficiently. Chromium, in the form of glucose tolerance factor, is another trace element that's critically important to prevent diabetes and blood sugar abnormalities. We know that half of the US population now has prediabetes or diabetes. And we believe that the reason for this is coming specifically from a lack of these trace elements. So making sure that you get plenty of these trace elements is really critical. Another disease that's really important is cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of all people in industrialized nations. So cardiovascular disease can be related also to a deficiency of magnesium. Most people are terribly deficient in magnesium and really need to up their levels. Aside from magnesium, we also know that antioxidant nutrients, especially selenium, is critically important. In many studies, it's shown areas in the world that have low levels of selenium have higher risks of developing cardiovascular disease as well as various types of cancers. So having selenium in the soil, again, is very, very critical. In addition to these two minerals, it's also extremely important that we have certain types of compounds like vitamin C that also protect us from cardiovascular disease. The health of a plant really determines the level of vitamin C that that plant actually makes. So again, making sure that you're getting foods organically grown is critical. Osteoporosis is a great example of one degenerative disease that has an association with many different types of trace elements, including silica, manganese, boron, molybdenum. All of these trace elements play an important role in forming healthy bones. So over time, as we age, most people tend to develop osteoporosis or osteopenia. And if you break a hip at a later age, you usually don't survive very long. Past the age of 60, if you break a hip, usually you only survive, about 1/4 of people only survive 12 months afterwards. So again, it's really important as we age that we keep our bones healthy. Osteoarthritis affects almost all people in industrialized countries. So why is it that people develop osteoarthritis? And there's many reasons for it, but one of the reasons, again, is going to be related to trace elements being deficient in the diet. So we know boron is an important trace element, as well as in osteoporosis, but also as a problem in osteoarthritis that again affects many, many people in the industrialized countries. Other nutrients that are critically important are copper and zinc. Copper and zinc, again, oftentimes deficient in our soil, and they play a role in manufacturing an important compound that the body makes called superoxide dismutase. Superoxide dismutase is a great anti-inflammatory compound of which most people tend to be deficient in. Again, because they lack those special trace elements, zinc and copper, to manufacture appropriate amounts. Other degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease can also be traced to various types of minerals. And these minerals include but not specifically related to vanadium. Vanadium is something we mentioned before related to diabetes that's important for insulin to bind onto the receptors to allow your blood sugar to get into a nice range. So lack of that trace element also can be a factor in Alzheimer's disease. So dementia has a strong component related to cardiovascular disease. Again, we know that there's many trace elements that can be associated, if they're deficient, with both cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's disease. And lastly, another condition that's greatly on the increase and is rapidly catching up to cardiovascular disease as the number one killer in the United States, and that would be cancer. So cancer is related to a number of trace elements that might be deficient. So we talked about superoxide dismutase and copper and zinc being deficient. Well, that's one important factor as related to cancer. Selenium is a critical mineral. Selenium is used by your body to make glutathione peroxidase. So being deficient in selenium is going to result from less glutathione peroxidase. And lastly, phytochemicals. So phytochemicals, of which there are thousands of them, that are very important for, in particular, protecting our various cells and our DNA from oxidative damage. So we want to make sure that we get plenty of phytochemicals, and those phytochemicals that are found in plants are related to the health of the plant. So eating foods that come from artificial fertilizers and artificial pesticides and herbicides are going to generate less in the way of these phytochemicals, predisposing us to cancer and the other degenerative diseases that we just spoke about. So what are the best ways to get these trace elements and phytochemicals? Certainly eating a wide array of plant foods is really critical, but also what's really critical is where you get your plants from. So organic plants are going to have much more in the way of trace elements, and because they're healthier, they're going to have more phytochemicals. But there are different levels of organic plants. Some plants are grown more effectively than others with various types of minerals. So one of the things that we need to do is to pay special attention to where these organic foods are being grown and how is the soil actually being taken care of. Because two organic foods may have different levels of minerals in them due to how the soil is taken care of. There's one particular type of farming, biodynamic farming, that was created by Rudolf Steiner that basically maximizes the health of plants due to increasing mineralization of the soil. So if you can get your organic foods from specific types of farms where you know that they're using higher quality of minerals and organic matter, that's great. So better yet, if you grow your own food is really important. Growing your own food, you can supply certain minerals into the soil. I use a type of mineral dust that comes from organic volcanic ash as well as from glaciers. And you can put that in the soil, and that soil will become enriched with more microorganisms due to the fact that you're supplying these trace elements and feeding those microbes with very fine mineral dust. So that would be a great way for people to do. In the old days, World War II, there were victory gardens where people grew their own foods to save resources. So that's a great idea. And I think as our culture develops more and more, we need to understand that everyone needs to grow their own foods. Lastly, as a preventive tool, we need to take a good multivitamin and mineral supplement, especially one that's loaded with trace elements. So the way you can tell a good multivitamin and mineral supplement is to look down the list of these trace elements that I've mentioned previously: molybdenum, vanadium, strontium, boron, silica. All of these trace elements, if you look on your label, should be present in ample amounts. So I created a multivitamin called Omnivite some 35 years ago that has a tremendous number of these trace elements in it. So this particular multivitamin is available through marznutrition.net. If you like this podcast, click like and subscribe below. And if you want more information with regards to my multivitamin supplement, you can go to marznutrition.net and get further detailed information. And thanks for watching the Health Talk from Mars. It's out of this world. Join me in my next episode.